here. So today we're going to be going over some new Copilot features that came out with Wave 2. So to get started today, we're going to talk about Copilot Pages. We're going to be talking about Copilot and Python and Excel. And then we're going to be going over how to create Copilot agents to do some of the things that you don't want to do every day. So first of all, Copilot Pages, right? So Copilot Pages are interactive workplaces within Loop, and that allows us to co-create and edit content together in real time. And what that does is when we are working with Copilot to come up with ideas and generate content, we can share this in real time with other people so that we don't have to start copying and pasting out of Copilot's biz chat into other platforms. So it gives us that seamless integration between the entire stack and allows for real-time ideation and content creation across teams. So we get that real-time collaboration. We have Copilot and our AI assistant built into those tasks. So we're going to go through this live here after we go through a couple of slides. And this is going to also help us with some task management, process management, and allows us actually to start reusing some of these components we're creating with Copilot across the stack here. So I'm actually going to stop, and I am going to stop the slideshow and share my screen out differently. It looks like it stopped sharing as well. So just a moment here. I'm just going to share my entire screen to make it easier. And we'll flip back and forth here this way. So what Microsoft has done is in Teams, we have this new component that's been released called BizChat. And if I go here, I get some notifications here, work smarter with Copilot. I'm going to Copilot here. And this used to be called Copilot Chat. Now this is called BizChat. So anytime I am working with Copilot now and I'm generating ideas, let's generate 10 ideas based on Copilot Wave 2 training activities. So once I start working with Copilot and start asking it questions, right, it's going to come back and it's going to look through my internal documents that I have access to. And it's giving me some different ways that we can do this and some different ideas. So directly from here, instead of copying this over, bringing it over into an email, I can actually start clicking edit in Pages. And this is going to allow me to create loop components that I can start sharing with other individuals in the organization, turning these into components that I could reuse across other applications and start generating different types of activities here. So if I decided that we are going to maybe have some peer learning groups and I want to develop a class on this, an agenda, I'm going to go back into Copilot. Let's work on an agenda for this workshop. And I'm going to close this out of Pilot over here. We're going to let this go. It's going through some documents that I've written before. It's going through a training workshop agenda for me. And now I'm going to use this and say, this is the agenda that we're going to use for a workshop. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a component that I can start using then across the entire Office stack. So I can bring this over into Loop. I can start sharing this with other individuals. As I make changes here, these different components are going to start changing across the stack. So if I copy this into PowerPoint or copy it into Word, or I bring these components into Outlook, all of these AI-driven insights that I'm generating through BizChat are going to start showing up everywhere I've copied that. So as I work with other individuals in the organization, right, and Amy is on our call today, she's part of our marketing department. If we were working on a new agenda, then Amy could also bring some of her insights, some of her documents, some of her organizational knowledge into the conversation using Copilot. And then together we could have this agenda put together pretty quickly and then brought back over into something that we can start consuming. So this is just one way that Pages has been brought into Copilot to help us have an easier way to start sharing what we are actually creating across Copilot there. So I'm actually going to pause and I'm going to see if there are any questions or thoughts so far before we kind of continue. No questions or thoughts. All right. Then the two parts that I think are going to be more valuable today actually are going to be when we get into Copilot and Python in Excel and actually creating Copilot agents. So I'm going to go back over to our slide deck and I'm just going to maximize these slides because I'm actually going to be bouncing back and forth and it's a little bit easier here. So Python is now integrated into Excel. So what that means is if you're working with a lot of data, Excel has always been the tool we're always going to use for financial analysis or reporting, any kind of data manipulation. But when we're actually performing more advanced kind of data analytics, Python has much more powerful libraries for data science. So with that being directly built into Excel, we can start using Python's data analysis libraries like pandas for data manipulation or other tools for visualization without having to create a document, export it from Excel, bring it into Python, and then bring it back into Excel. So when we are looking at how we clean up our data, how we format it, how we visualize trends, we're relying really heavily on all these charts. But with that integration, we can bypass a lot of the limitations that we have in Excel and start getting into a more advanced analysis. So here I actually use Copilot to create a table for us today with some data that we can use for this demo. And to access Python in Copilot, there are a couple of different ways you can do this. I'm going to expand this out here so you can see. The easiest way is to get into is to click Advanced Analysis. And this is actually going to start an interaction with Copilot that allows us to start asking questions about our data. Copilot is going to ask us questions about what we're trying to achieve. And we can actually go back and forth using Copilot to write Python, add our own Python code to different cells, and do other things like that to perform advanced analysis. So I'm going to go ahead and click Start Advanced Analysis. You can see here, it's actually created a new sheet for me. It's actually going through and starting to run an analysis for me. It's showing the Python code that it's generated in order to do this analysis. And you can see here, it's starting to put out different pieces of information. So I have a list of some Copilot code that I've actually put together that I'm going to go pull up in another document here. So there's some different things that we can start doing with this. So we can have Copilot import different pandas or different items into different libraries to help us with our data analysis. And we can perform these data analysis with real language. So maybe I want to filter my data set to show rows where the region is north and sales volume is greater than 100. So it's actually going to translate that into Python code for me. And it's going to load that data set. It's showing me the code that it inserted. We're going to go back here and it's showing me it put that in cell A24. And now it's scrolling through. So if I go back over to A24, we can actually see that it shows PY, which shows that that's actually Python. And we have these different comments here, the actual Python code right in the cell. So I can start interacting with this. If I was a Python developer, I could start making changes here. I could also ask Copilot to start doing different things for me with that information. So I can actually also say, create a line plot, create some visualizations. So let's create a line plot for sales volume over time. It's actually going to import the right library for me. It's the Matplot library. It's going to bring that over, start understanding the data. And you can see here, it used Python. I keep scrolling over here to generate this chart. We'll have to let it finish. Now that it's done, we can see I have a chart here that shows sales volume over time. And we also can use advanced charting if we have really large data sets and start using Seaborn or other types of libraries to visualize data a little bit differently. So we could also, scatter plots are something that is done with Seaborn, and it's going to automatically import that library for us and start creating that visualization for us here by revenue versus sales volume colored by region. So you can see that we can get a lot of insights using real language and still have that powerful Python data analysis behind us. And we're not limited just to Excel formulas or things like that once we get into data analysis. And you can see here now Copilot is starting to understand some of my requests. So it's showing suggest more ideas, offering different things it can do. And of course, it's looking at the data that we have here. And it's saying, here's some different ways we can analyze our data. And so we're going to go ahead. And if we're following through and listening to these prompts and having this conversation back and forth, it's easier for us to get to that end result of visualizing or working with our data, depending on what our end goal is. So to statistical summaries, advanced visualization, there are a lot of different ways that we can start using Python directly in Excel instead of having to, again, export that data out, transform it, and then bring it back here. So you can see now it's given me some other pieces of information here, showing me the correlation and coefficient. And this gets pretty deep here. So this might not be something that we're all using every day, but the advanced analysis is going to start using advanced features and advanced code to give us different types of insights into our data than what we would get just by interacting with Excel's formulas and spreadsheets. So now I come back over here and I've exited that kind of advanced analysis mode. And now I have the ability to start interacting with Copilot and Excel in a way that might be something we're a little bit more used to. So we can also start doing some things like this when some different things with this when it starts coming into different process automations and different types of things. So one way this is really powerful across the stack when we start talking about Pages and Excel and all the different ways we use Copilot in Office is I think the biggest thing that people can take away from today is this new thing called Copilot agents. And I'm going to bring back up our slide deck and we're going to talk through agents. And then we're actually going to create a no-code agent that's going to do something for us on today's call, because I think that's where we're going to have the most value out of everything. Everything else is available kind of as reference material. We do have the Python code in the deck, but Copilot agents are really important because they allow us to start automating tasks and taking actions. So we are actually putting the ability to create an agent with the person who is most familiar with the data or the piece of information they're working with. So there's no code. There is the ability to start customizing these with Copilot Studio. In my environment, that ability is not there yet. That is a feature that is rolling out, so we can use this as a baseline. And again, this is now called Biz Chat when we're in Teams. This is no longer Copilot Chat. So it's going to help us automate some of these repetitive tasks. And when you think about the way we use chatbots and AI, it can help us improve our efficiencies. It's giving me a personalized user experience. And it's allowing me basically to use Copilot to write an app to do something without having to know how to code. So a really easy way to do this is to go back to Copilot. I'm going to do a new chat here. And on the right here, you see I have the ability to get Copilot agents or create agents. So if you click Get Copilot Agents, there are already libraries of agents out there that Microsoft has put out, especially these with the Copilot icon, that are going to help you use different applications across the stack. And these Copilot icons mean these are actually enhanced to work with Microsoft Copilot. But today we're actually going to create one. So I'm going to go back to Copilot. And there are a couple of different things that we can do here. So if we create an agent, we actually are going to use AI to describe what we want the agent to do. And then we are actually going to be able to configure data sources that give it those sources of instructions, those sources of knowledge. That could be a SharePoint site, a Word document, a PowerPoint, a website, all different things like that. But we can only have up to 20 knowledge sources when we're doing it this way. And we can also talk about whether or not we want to use web-based content. So are we also using the internet along with this, or are we only grounding this chatbot with the knowledge that we specify here? So one way I've done this, and then we're going to go back and build that, is I've built out what's a contract review assistant here. And this is going to help to redline contracts based on standard knowledge. I'm going to actually show you how I built this on the back end. So I have a document that I created that has some standard contract terms that we want to see in all of our documents. And this is not something that is proprietary to concurrency or anything like that. These are just some terms that I came up with for today's demo. So I actually have those loaded on a SharePoint site right now. And these are just a list of standard contract terms that we might want to see. I have my standard payment terms, termination clause, confidentiality agreements. I just have a list. I have a heading of what that term is, and then I say it should be net 30 and go through that. And that just has a list, a very simple list to start out with. So then I went ahead and I created my agent. We're going to walk through that, but I'm going to show you how I use it. So what I can actually do with agents is I can start calling them from other applications, almost like an assistant. So I'm going to bring up a very simple contract here. And again, this was created for today's demo, Microsoft Jumpstart project contract. I'm going to open up Copilot. You can see here I have Copilot that we're familiar with in Word. And I can actually choose different copilots. And the chatbot that I put together, my contract review assistant now, is over here because this is my job. I'm reviewing contracts. I created this to make my life easier. So now I just want to go through and I want to say, reference my repository. Reference this repository to ensure this contract is accurate. The repository represents the information I grounded Copilot with, saying these are my standard terms, these are my standard services. These are my standards. And now it's going to go through and it's going to give me a list of all the changes I need to make to this document. So as it goes through, it's going to expand here in a moment. So if there's anything that we are doing in our jobs that we are looking for, say in a Word document where we want standard language, or we're writing a proposal, or we're writing a document, these standards can be stored in a centralized repository that we're all working on. And then as that repository evolves, now everybody that has this chatbot has this central legal source of information if we change our payment terms or something like that. So you can see it's highlighting in this long contract everything that needs to change. Payment terms, termination clause, confidentiality, intellectual property. And then I have these notations that are bringing me back to that main document, which shows where it learned this information from. So I always have that source of truth because I, using Copilot, am responsible for this output, and I have to make sure that everything I'm putting together is correct. Now I'm going to pause because I see a chat bubble, and I want to make sure. So when using web-based data sources, can you use a web portal that requires a login like Jira? No, not with. So short answer is no, we cannot use something that requires a login when we're creating a Copilot from a user perspective without any coding. We're creating this agent directly within Copilot. In order to do something like that, we would need Copilot Studio, and we would have to create that connector, create that login, so that we had access to a different source of information. So does that answer your question, Daniel? Awesome. All right, so that's helpful. So yes, that's a good question though. These are Copilot agents that are being pushed down at the user level. And there are some differences because there are instances, right, where we want that chatbot to have access to a proprietary system or different things like that. In Copilot Studio, we can set up all these connectors and set up all these different actions that are going to bring all kinds of information back over to the chatbot experience. But this chatbot and how it relates to Copilot is also different in the fact that messaging is something that's different between the two. So when you create a chatbot in Copilot Studio, you are allowed so many messages per month, or you have different quotas, and you're charged maybe based on the number of message interactions that go through. Our Copilot agents that are being published with a Copilot license this way do not have any messaging limits. So if I put out something in my organization that is really, really helpful to everybody, and I share this chatbot out and everybody starts using it, I don't have any additional costs other than my Copilot license here. So it's a little bit different than Copilot Studio, where we're actually metering the number of messages and the number of actions that are taking place. So this truly does allow those individual users that know the data, know their processes, take a no-code approach to creating something that'll help automate part of their day or take care of part of their workflow. And yes, this is also available for SharePoint. If you go out to a SharePoint site, you will actually see, I'm going to bring up in another window here because I don't want to bring up any other customer information. So just a moment. There is a Copilot icon you will see next to a file in SharePoint. And you can actually click right there and start building your Copilot agent from that data source. I'm just waiting for SharePoint to load in another window. And so while that's loading, I'll make sure we get back to that here. There we go. Sorry, my entire computer just froze for a moment because I have so many things open for this. So, all right, so how do we do this? Let's create, there's also another chatbot here that I did create. And I'm showing you this other chatbot because I want to also show something that's called token limits when we're working with creating our bots. I created one called Copilot Companion. And what I did here was I gave it a set of instructions, and we're going to bring these instructions up in Word. But I'm allowed to write instructions that are up to 8,000 characters in length. And again, I have a knowledge source here. So I'm going to bring over what I did so we can kind of talk through the logic that Copilot agents use. And as you can see, I have a ton open on my computer, and I'm trying not to just go this way. All right. So this is how I trained this agent to do what it's going to do. And what this agent does is I have a set of prompts that I've collected over the last year, about 200, 250 high value prompts that are really, really helpful across the different Office applications. So I told Copilot that it's going to be called Copilot Companion and what it's actually going to do. It's a conversational assistant designed to help people with Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Teams. I told it what tone to use. And I also said guide users on the actions they want to perform, different prompt categories, and the Microsoft product they're using. And then I gave it an example. So say for a category called catch up, and I use that category because across the stack, whenever you're using Copilot and you click, there's a prompt button over here, view prompts. Generally, Copilot Lab is going to be under certain types of categories where we're creating content, asking, summarizing, different things like that. So I gave an example of how I wanted it to respond. I told it exactly what I wanted it to do when the user specified their task. I said, provide a relevant prompt along with a description explaining how it's used. And I said, here's how to approach each category. So I wrote this document that says, if somebody says they want to learn something, provide them prompts to help them learn information. And then I actually went through the user interaction and scenarios and told it how to respond, gave it a response flow, and told it exactly what I wanted it to do. So by writing this up and then putting this in Copilot, I'm actually then able to switch over to our Copilot Companion. And now I have these tiles that I also created without any code. And I told it what these tiles would be. I would like to learn something new with Copilot, just different ways of prompting users and giving users information. And again, this was no code. So I need some help digging deeper. Can you suggest ask prompts? Now it's going through, saying now it's personalized to me. It knows my name. What kind of insights are you looking for? Are you working in Excel? What are you doing? I'm working in Microsoft Word and I want to learn more about a 150-page document without reading it all. So now one limitation with these is it's also going to go through and it's looking at, you saw it flash 150-page document. So initially it was going through and looking through everything I had access to in OneDrive and email and chats, looking for a 150-page document. But now it knows I'm not referencing an explicit document with that title and understands that these are the different things I want to do. So here are some prompts that can help you dig deeper. And these are ways that I can start using this here. So it's telling me, summarize the key points, create an outline. So I created this so that different people across the organization would have a way of getting different ways, different ideas about how to use Copilot. And then, like I said, we also had the one where we looked at today about contract review. So if we have any document that we are using as a sort of source of truth, we can create an agent to do something with that document. And now we're going to recreate our legal chatbot today. So it's asking me exactly to describe what I want it to do in real language. I want to create a chatbot that will help me identify standard contract language deviations. The chatbot should be friendly and help users identify contract issues. And you can get much longer with these. So I'm trying to keep this short for our demo today. But with Copilot, the more direction I give it, the more context I give it, the better examples I give it, the more effective it's going to be. So it's saying, great, okay, your Copilot's going to help identify standard contract language. Do you have any specific instructions on how Copilot should exist, like a specific tone? And just for today, I'm going to say no more instructions. And while it's going ahead and doing that, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say contract 2. This is the description that we're going to write up so that users can understand how to use this. The instructions are actually the instructions on what the Copilot agent is going to do, written in natural language. And then we're going to browse over to our knowledge source. And I can't bring this going to bring this into another window. And I'm going to select my knowledge source, and then I'll bring it back over. There we go. Oh, we're going to have to do this live on the screen, just a moment. So here I already have this standard contract terms. I uploaded this to a team site. It can use any SharePoint document. I could use a library. I could use many folders. And now I've grounded that with knowledge. So here I mentioned that actions and other capabilities will be coming soon with Copilot Studio, where I could take this workflow, this Copilot agent that I've already built, open it up in Copilot Studio, and then extend it. So maybe it could go pull information from Jira or start pulling information from a personalized knowledge source. But this is my, most basic starter version. So now it actually went through and it came up with some suggestions on starter prompts. And these are these tiles that we see on the right-hand side. So saying, identify contract deviations, review language, highlight issues, compare clauses. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept these defaults. And then I have the ability from here to either start testing this, or I can go out and I'm going to actually create this. And now it's creating that Copilot and publishing it to my organization so that I can start using this. And I called this one contract 2. And it does tell you do not close the window, because if you do that, it will not work. It will bomb during the creation of that. You do have the ability immediately to share this out to other individuals in your organization just by sharing out this link. But I'm actually, right now, I have it set, it's only for me, because I don't want to make this public yet, because I haven't even tried it yet. I haven't done anything with it. So if I click go to agent, you can see contract 2 shows up here in Copilot under my list of different agents here. So these are all agents that I put together myself, and they're all under my list. The reason that these are below this line, these are private. These are my agents only, whereas these are agents that I've published to the entire organization. So to make it easier, I'm actually going to go into Word because I already have a contract in one of these windows. Here's another basic contract. And I just put out terms that I knew wouldn't work and would be flagged by this tool. Go back, open up Copilot. I'm going to go back to contract 2, the one that we just created. And I'm actually going to say highlight contract issues. So now it's going to go back to that Word document. And it's actually now using that as the source. And we'll wait for that to finish. You can see here, it's actually identified those same terms. So now if somebody were to go back and change that source document, that source of truth, and update our payment terms, like here, I have this open. Now I'm going to change this to 90 days. I'm going to say either party can terminate with 180 days notice. And hopefully this saved just now. And it does take a moment for Copilot to understand that that document has changed. So we're going to see how fast it happens today. I'm going to switch back over to contract 2 and see if it already understands the new information that I put out there. Usually I see this take 5 to 10 minutes, but we're going to try it live since we have a group of people on the phone and just see what happens. So while that is doing this, are there any questions or thoughts on how we can use Copilot agents across the organization and other use cases? None whatsoever. Easy group today. So that's still looking through. I have a feeling this is not going to finish until I close the document and reload, just because I changed that Copilot agent. So I'm going to go back over. I'm going to go back over to our PowerPoint and just make sure I didn't ignore anything. But there are some other ways that you can use those Copilot agents. So is this running locally or in the cloud? This is actually running in the cloud. That Copilot agent is associated with my own Microsoft 365 account and with our tenant. So right now it's only available to myself. And how else can the agents help project managers? There are a lot of different ways, I think, from a project management standpoint, agents could be helpful. Basic agents can help us identify when people are available for meetings, what calendars look like. I can also write an agent if I have the name of a project that's out there, say Project Phoenix, and I have had 30 meetings over Project Phoenix over the last 90 days, I could actually go into Copilot and into an agent and say, write me a status report based on this type of information. Was it meetings? Was it email notes? I can have it go back through and comb all those multiple data sources, and I could set up a separate agent for each one of my projects so that I was actually maybe creating a status report for Project Phoenix, and then another agent to create a status report for a different project I'm on, and different things like that. The need for governance of public agent publishing seems necessary. Do you have thoughts? So you're absolutely correct. Now, one thing about these agents, though, is we have a couple of questions going on here. Visual Creator is actually an agent that I downloaded from Microsoft that allows me to create different visuals. This is a way of doing it without having to open up Copilot on the web and to create different graphics or image generation there. But from a governance perspective, that is a good question, because we do want to make sure that we're not exposing an unnecessary risk. However, these Copilot agents me as a user of Copilot, I can only run this agent against all the information I already have access to. So that's going to be my emails, my OneDrive, my conversations, and those other pieces of information that I already have access to in my tenant. If I share this Copilot agent with somebody else in my organization, it's only going to work for them if they have access to that source knowledge. So what we've done by creating an agent is we do have 2 points of consideration. We have to consider the governance around the grounding documents, our knowledge base, and we also have to consider the governance and security around the actual publication of this actual chatbot. We want to make sure the correct people do have access to this. And I think that's why it's really important that whenever we're rolling out Copilot, concurrency, we do make sure that we are going through all of those governance activities, helping to identify who has access to what, making sure that Copilot is not going to inappropriately expose information to the wrong people. So that is. But when we talk about public agents, these are not public. These are only inside of our tenant. When we get into public agents, that is a whole nother conversation that I could do a whole nother webinar on with Copilot Studio and a public facing agent, how to secure that and how to secure the data behind it. I'm just catching up here, I'm sorry. Did that kind of answer your question when we talk about governance and okay, very good. Scrolling back up. Calendar availability. Yeah, it does help with the calendar availability. When you get into, once we have these basic agents, our IT team can actually expand these in Copilot Studio and add additional actions and workflows and things like that. But this gives us a really good basis. So a lot of help in generating content, pulling information. And as these continue to evolve, these can start taking autonomous actions. So I can actually start writing up agents that are going to maybe monitor my inbox for me and do different things like that to surface information that's most relevant to my job, to go beyond even, using Copilot and Outlook to say, show me what's important or show me what I missed on this project. So I think the thing to remember with these agents is we can not only use them just to do something when I call on them, we can also create agents that are kind of running in the background that are helping us in our day-to-day tasks. So any other questions on anything we've covered today? All right. Switch back over to the deck and make sure that I didn't leave anything out here. I see somebody else did ask about what do these look like? Can you show how the agents are seen enterprise-wide? So when I go to get an agent, see here, I can hear my laptop. I think it's probably about 100 degrees too hot right now, but you can see here that these apps, all these different agents that are available across the organization. I have one that says manage my apps. But those co-pilots that I've shared out individually, they actually aren't going to show up here. I haven't published them to a store. I haven't done anything like that. When I create my co-pilot bots, I'm sharing those with specific individuals or specific teams, or putting those in places where only certain individuals have access to. So maybe I drop it on a SharePoint site where I'm controlling who has access to that SharePoint site or something there. So I hope that answered that. So I think as a follow-up, the only other thing, we have talked a little bit about our, governance approaches and some different considerations that I think are really important when we're talking about agents. Through our partnership with Microsoft, we do have the ability to provide a Microsoft-funded Copilot value discovery that can really help us make sure that we're getting into the weeds on how we can get Copilot out there, how we can implement it, and what that will look like for you. And then we also can offer a complimentary, initial assessment and talk about, what it would take to get Copilot in your environment in a secure way without exposing all that risk. So if there are no other questions today or no additions from anybody else, I thank you for your time. And if you have any other questions, let us know. Thank you so much.